Is there sound now? Just checking. Hello? Okay. So, okay, great. No voice. Okay. So, yep, there's been a lot. This is pretty last minute. Could you hear the music in the intro? Just out of curiosity, I hope. Hopefully you saw it. Okay, good. That's not, I was gonna say that I happen to like a lot, but that's not why we're here today. That's not what is the most important. We'll work those kinks out as we go. But right now, okay, well, we'll have to work on, whatever StreamYard is wanting to do with all this, or Facebook or YouTube, whichever one it is. Anyhow, so welcome everybody. Welcome. I appreciate you all being here. There has been a lot of things that are going on in our, thank you, Vicky, and thank you, Adam. There are a lot of things that are going on, none of which are great, of course, because, why not? But there's a lot of things going on with settlements and court cases, and then also a lot of manipulation and media. I'm going to say confusion, so we can say it's for the benefit, going with the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, so right now, I'm checking. Hooray! I have audio. So right now, let's see. I am sending out the link. If you could share this, that would be great. We got to try it. We have a lot to cover in a very short amount of time. And it's pretty confusing. But we are going to, we're going to try to cover a lot and make it make sense. But then again, that goes on to the normal, that goes on with the normal chaos that is, basically inflicted on Flint residents like we haven't been through enough, right? So what we're trying to do with all of this is understand why these things are happening and why, what we can do to protect ourselves. And by doing that, this is going to be cheerful, but I want to give a shout out. There's several journalists that have been out there looking out for us and that flag things for us. So this isn't going to be bashing the media in general. Thank you, Artistic Mess. This is what we have to look out for. This is what we have to do to protect ourselves. And of course, we have to take extra steps to be careful, unfortunately, because there are folks, I'm going to say it always boils down to money, reputation, PR, the games. There are going to be folks that are going to have us running around in circles, having us stressing out, having us not even wanting to speak about what's going on, all in favor to help, the responsible parties. So, okay, we're going to get right into it. If people have questions, I'm watching the chat as I'm going, but we're going to go a lot of back and forth. So basically February 1st, so 9 days ago, Veolia is one of the engineering firms that was brought in by former emergency manager Jerry Ambrose to have a look at the water and what's going on. I was fortunate enough to be able to sit in on the meeting that one of the meetings that Veolia had with our city council to tell them how to handle. And they were saying, this is how, on a PR standpoint, this is how you would handle concerns by Flint residents. Again, this is March of 2015. We had already discovered that there was lead in the water. Bob Bocock and Aaron Brockovich had already been, Bob marched with us in February. We'd already done the testing for his encouragement. Aaron and Brockovich and Bob had been to Congress to see Congress about us. We'd already been doing a lot of the work. And so then it became, how do we spin this? So Veolia got quite a big hefty contract for a city that was broke. Thanks to the emergency manager hiring them, and sat in on, yes, Vicky, that is what we're going to talk about today. Vicky Marks put in the chat, Paul Egan's article in the Detroit News was interesting this morning regarding Corey Stern. So that is one of the things we're going to cover today. It's going to be a little bit different than my normal shows, but we're rolling into it. So Veolia North America was brought in as an engineering firm. We had brought Bob Bocock in, who was water quality expert. He was director of public works for Los Angeles for several years, for quite some time. And he had toured the water treatment plant, spoke with the workers. So he had given his recommendations in February of 2015 about corrosion control, about how to deal with the cost, and asking questions about the cost. Because again, Flint's water wasn't just corroding our pipes and contaminating our water in our bodies. It was also the most expensive in the United States. So, and we're still up there as some of the highest rates in the United States for water we still cannot safely use. Now, that being said, Veolia came in, got offered a big fat contract to tell people things like, hey, why don't you put your water bills in an envelope? And that way people don't see the amounts right away. And so you can put happy messaging, to distract folks. As I was sitting there taking notes in this meeting, and this is, before I'd only been doing it since January of 2015, any kind of activism, let alone the water. It was interesting to hear that was the focus, not how to make the water stop hurting people and destroying our infrastructure. But also we had come across, and it's come out in a lot of the hearings, that really the goal for Veolia was to come in and privatize our water treatment plant and the Carragandi Water Authority pipeline and to sell it off to make profit, much like they had done very unsuccessfully in cities like Pittsburgh and Atlanta. We're very anti-privatization here at What Are You Fighting For, as well as Flint Rising, because that's a loss of democracy. Basically, regular folks don't have a say. So Veolia came in, supposedly gave advice to the city on what to do, which was, interestingly enough, the exact opposite of Bob Bocock, who had said increase the ozone generation, which would help kill bacteria without the side effects and the disinfection byproduct things, and to lower the acid like ferric chloride, things like that. But then Veolia was flip-flopping. And anyway, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Veolia has fought tooth and nail on their responsibility with this. And it came out in hearings, in the last hearing that they were in court, that there were internal memos that said, their scientists thought that they should tell Flint to go back to Detroit, to switch, to get off the Flint River and to go back to the clean water source, Detroit water source. But they decided to not make that their recommendation and go with what's, money, always money. So Veolia still to this day says that they're not guilty, not responsible, all of this stuff. And their last trial that had happened, there was a hung jury. And what had come out actually by accident, some of us had been looking up what was going on, and we started getting these ads. If you Googled Veolia, we get all these ads, like 6 or 8 on your homepage, your first page of that saying Veolia tried to help Flint, Veolia is being wrongfully accused, things like links like that. So and a lot of actually really good journalism came out about this, about the targeted ad, the geo-targeted ads or targeted ads, especially right around where the jury was being selected. And it was just pummeling. And I happened to be in the hospital in Ann Arbor for a bit, and my phone when I was in Ann Arbor was just getting inundated with these ads. And that's where the trial was happening. That's where, down in federal court in Ann Arbor. And so then there were some amazing journalists, which again, there's a pretty big announcement at the end of the show about this. Or started to dig in and find out, hey, what's going on? Why are people being flooded, especially around Ann Arbor, being flooded with all these Veolia was innocent, Veolia facts, what they're not telling you. And they always, kind of were like, what the activists are saying isn't true. And, you always want to discredit the victims, right? So pretty much the same thing that the state of Michigan was doing and the government was doing. But then Veolia likes to say, oh, it's all the government. We're good folks. So that being said, in 2 weeks, and actually at February 1st, they were 2 weeks away from a new hearing. Okay, we were going to go to court, new trial, all this stuff, since there was a mistrial because there was one hung juror. And so that was coming up, and more information had been coming out, and then information was brought up about all of these targeted, geo-targeted, whatever ads. And so things were looking pretty not great for Veolia, especially with the attorneys and the evidence that was being had. So then out of nowhere, bam, a very fast settlement announcement. And we're going to go look at that now. This is Veolia's statement on February 1st that said Veolia North America. And you can, I always put links in the chat and everything. You can also, check this out for yourself and share. But it says Veolia, Veolia North America has reached a $25 million settlement agreement with Flint Water litigation class, represented by co-lead Mr. Ted Leopold and Mr. Michael Pitt. This includes a payment of $1,500 per individual, not to exceed $1.5 million. It's estimated this will resolve claims on behalf of more than 45,000 claimants, more than half the Flint population. So, okay, great. So, you keep reading, and then they talk about the next is VNA stands by its work in Flint. The city hired VNA as a consultant for 10 months after the switch to the Flint River to conduct a 1-week assessment. VNA made good recommendations, including one on corrosion control. That would have helped the city had those recommendations not been almost entirely ignored. So this sounds extremely petty and immature, but okay, leave that out. They're saying VNA had no power of these decisions and they never operated the water treatment plant. However, it was made public the plan that Veolia had made to take over the water treatment plant. And they said the settlement follows the mistrial, which a group of plaintiffs represented by Mr. Corey Stern, which is interesting that they bring up this attorney who is an attorney for a large group of like thousands of children, Flint children. Why they bring him up in this statement, it's pretty interesting. Okay, a little weird because he's not involved in this part of the settlement at all. So what's going on here? But it said, represented by Mr. Corey Stern, failed to prove VNA's liability before a jury of residents. Actually, that's not true. It was one hung juror. But okay, this company is going to spend all this money on a PR firm to put this out there, right? Called ACTA. So basically, as the facts clearly showed, the water crisis was a failure of government, from Governor Snyder to the bureaucrats on the ground. Okay, great. And then it says the settlement does not resolve claims against VNA brought by certain individual plaintiffs, going back to, and despite his failures in court. So this is a multi-billion-dollar international company going after this one guy, right? This one attorney. Despite his failures in court, Mr. Stern is pushing forward additional unnecessary litigation against VNA. Interesting. They'll continue to fight the false allegations that Mr. Stern is spreading both in court and the media. Okay. Sure. So then it says, basically going on talking about there's this subclass, but I just want to highlight, VNA did nothing wrong in Flint. We stand by the work our people did in Flint. The facts at the trial clearly demonstrate, no, they don't. It was a hung jury and there are lots of factors for this, but it was a mistrial. So if they clearly showed that, Veolia was innocent, why was the trial going to happen again? Right. And then also if Veolia is interested, and again, what I don't normally do, and again, I'm not a multi-billion-dollar corporation. If I feel I'm innocent and I'm spending all this money with all of these attorneys in court, I don't usually cut a $25 million check for somebody else's mistakes. What? So again, they're cutting this $25 million settlement. So they chose to go in to settle. But why would you do that if you were innocent and you stood by the work? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just go to trial since you're so confident and win again or have another mistrial or whatever? Why would you do that? But then this whole time, them saying, we're here for Flint and they have had, all these injustices happen. Why then come in and say, we're innocent, but here's some $25 million. And again, first of all, $25 million, that's a joke. $25 million is a joke. You were hired as an engineering firm to check the water. They never even tested the water. So they didn't do the proper things. And the things they suggested, obviously were the opposite of helpful. Here we go. So, but they're saying they're not responsible and they did nothing wrong. Why are you cutting any kind of check? And again, $25 million across 45,000 claimants. That's ridiculous. That's very little money. But yet they fought this like it was their lives depended upon it, right? And if they're saying that they're innocent and it's all just the state, then why cut a check at all? So that was a big question. It was a big question I had. But then why involve half of your statement about Corey Stern? And that's ongoing. And also it's a little weird, you're using this, you're settling and saying you're going to help Flint residents and do this, but you're using it to bash an attorney that's representing Flint children. Ugh. It's like, why are you obsessed with this man? So, very interesting. Now, during this time, it was very last minute. I'm going to build up to a certain thing. I'm going to share with you some emails that we received through Flint Rising and myself. And so January 29th, so basically a day or two before the settlement was announced, there was an email that we received, and it's Roland Martin, unfiltered, guest inquiry, re Flint water crisis 10 years later. And this is the first email that we received. And it says, the week of February 5th, we will be dedicating time to talk about the Flint water crisis. Would anyone from your organization be willing to join us for a segment that week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? We appreciate the consideration. Well, we got busy and we were talking about this schedules and all this. And it happened, we got the email right around the time that, there was other media happening around the settlement and all that. And so we had to look at, us at Flint Rising, we had to look at our schedules and figure out, okay, what's going on. And then a couple days later, there was this. It was, good evening. I am the supervising producer for Roland Martin. This week we are doing a daily segment reflecting on the Flint water crisis. Would anyone from your organization be available to join us Wednesday, February 7th or Friday the 9th at 7 p.m. to discuss what has happened the last 10 years and what still needs to be done? We appreciate your consideration. And that was it. Right? There was no mention of anything about Corey Stern or the settlement, really, or just a general update. And we have been getting a lot of these because, April 25th is coming up on 10 years, a decade of the ongoing Flint water crisis. So we've been getting a lot of these, and this is just normal. This is normal. And then we wrote back, and Nayyera Sharif, director of Flint Rising, went on Friday night, went on to do the interview, and however, and there was also a pastor that went on, and then something happened. These Flint residents, these directly impacted Flint residents who agreed to do an interview to discuss, hey, it's coming up on 10 years, what needs to be done, ended up getting, let's just say, a little bit blindsided by a 6-year-old podcast that said, and this is Detroit News. It says top attorney in Flint water crisis case under fire after comments surfaced from 2018 podcast. First of all, it should say resurface because this came up. Veolia, again, who this attorney is suing, and he's refusing to settle. He's wanting to take them, through court again. Brought it up in 2020, but nobody picked up on it. So here we are again looking at this. There's a clip that Corey Stern, an attorney for the children, had said, Flint is an S-hole, and he appeared on this Race Wars podcast on August 2nd, 2018. Okay, so you've got, it's several years ago. And it says, on Friday, Stern accused one of the Flint contractors he is suing, Veolia North America, whose publicist sent out a news release about the coverage on Roland Martin Unfiltered show of taking isolated remarks out of context and orchestrating the resurfacing of a 5-year-old podcast to shift the narrative of the ongoing litigation. Yeah, because coming up this week, going back to court. So then Veolia puts this out and the media grabs onto it, like some media grab onto it. So the Roland Martin show, interestingly enough, they, instead of talking about what's going on and the needs of the Flint residents, threw this out and said, what do you think of this? And the thing is usually when you do interviews, they'll give you a heads up of what it's about and they'll give you some information. Well, the folks that were being interviewed were not given. And in fact, like Nayyera says in her statement, if, Mr. Stern said these things, it'd be extremely racist. And because, we weren't aware of it because we've got other things going on. And so, basically what we're looking at is, what's going on, what's fair, all this. So then we're talking about, in the podcast, there's basically saying, they're taking different quotes from this 2018 podcast. Let me just say, first of all, if you said these things, that's awful and you should apologize. And I guess they already did, in 2020, whatever. But also at the end of the day, these headlines like this, it's not that nobody cares. It's like, this is an attorney who's saying this stuff. And he's basically saying, if you get $2.5 million, you can spend it pretty fast, and talking about why the settlement for the kids is going to be structured. So it's going to be bits and pieces throughout their life instead of giving them a lump sum. Coming from a PR background, things he said, great. No, it's not. But he was trying to say that's why this to protect the kids from all the money being spent right away. Whatever his excuse was, he's also on a comedian's podcast in 2018. Right now, we should be in the media talking about compromised immune systems, service lines not being finished, yards not being done, money not being paid out from the settlement that was already, done. There's a lot of things to be talking about. But okay, let's bring this up and let's go ahead and blindside residents. Not getting to the worst part yet. So basically, it's saying things like, basically nobody's gotten money yet and blah, 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 blah. And it talks about it. So then Corey Stern, the attorney, said, for years, Veolia has used a public relations machine to shift the narrative from their role in the Flint water crisis. And you can see that. Anybody can go on and Google Veolia Flint, and you will see just all of these sponsored ads that saying Veolia is innocent, Veolia is wrongly accused. And it's like, oh my goodness, seriously. It says, in Veolia's latest PR maneuver is peddling to the media 4-second snippet from a 5-year-old podcast. And that podcast, which lasts over an hour, I talked at length about the damage caused by childhood lead poisoning. And so, yeah, he says all this. And then he said that Veolia denies that any children were even lead poisoned in Flint, and even denies that the water was unsafe. Instead, Veolia continues to attempt to distract from its role in the water crisis by attacking the lawyers representing the victims. So, and then Sharif, there's more, talking about the disgraceful comments, and Veolia said that Stern basically, oh my God, he's making these awful comments. Well, his comments didn't poison us. I just want to say that, are they great? No. Have I listened to the whole podcast? No, because nobody sent that out and let us listen to it first before these residents were interviewed. And let me just tell you this, when we trust the media and we go on these shows, like the Roland Martin show, well-respected shows. When we go on these shows and we talk about what it's like to live and survive the Flint water crisis and to make it through, we're opening up and we're sharing a piece of that. When we do interviews with, Detroit News, Detroit Free Press, we are sharing our feelings and our thoughts and our experiences because we feel that they're valuable and they are important and valued. However, when you blindside us with stuff like this and we don't have a chance to prepare and you drop very inflammatory stuff like this on us, that's wrong. And this is why folks don't trust media. I mean, it's ridiculous. And we need the media. So this is the problem. This is another reason why I'm sitting here on a Saturday afternoon after work doing this live stream type of thing and making myself, I have to wear pants. I guess I don't have to wear pants, but I'm wearing pants because we get misrepresented in the media. So we're up against these multi-billion-dollar corporations that have media teams and PR firms and all this money going into this. The state government, all of these governments have all these PR firms, and we're just us as individuals. And yet here we have these news outlets that we trust to get us our news and to get our voice and our statement out there, blindsiding us with this to have some kind of inflammatory response. But what's worse is going forward, Nayyirah Sharif was talking about, she criticized Stern's comments, said no way should be. However, she said, her criticism of Stern's comments should in no way be seen as support for Veolia, which she has said has spent an untold amount of money to whitewash themselves and any kind of responsibility around the water crisis. Flint Rising opposes privatization of public water systems, which is Veolia's business. So after Nayyirah Sharif and Pastor Thompson and people have done these interviews, they have to go back and go, oh my God, my feelings, they're going to use my feelings and my words to support Veolia and to help them get out. And not only is Veolia doing this, but then these news outlets they're using Flint residents, shock of hearing something from 5-6 years ago, but also being blindsided because you go on, you do prepare for interviews. You say, when you get these emails that say, we're going to talk about the 10 years, you want to get your dates right, your facts right. You're not ready to be blindsided because nobody's prepared you. And that's so disrespectful by this. But then you find out that there's, of course, a much deeper and ulterior motive. And that's where it starts to get really gross. So then Nayyirah had made it clear that, Flint Rising opposes privatization of public water systems, which is a part of Veolia's business. Another Flint resident and activist, Arthur Woodson, said he supports Stern and also believes Veolia is trying to dig dirt up on Stern. He seems to be one of the only lawyers left willing to help keep fighting for Flint residents. And Arthur Woodson actually sent a letter to Judge Levy, who's overseeing these, most of the Flint water settlements, the civil cases, not the lead service line case or the criminal cases, but the damages case. So in that letter, Woodson said he'd been contacted by Veolia's public relations firm about Stern's comments on the podcast. The employee of the PR firm of Actum told him he was looking for Flint residents to comment for an article that would be appearing in the New York Post. So once again, trying to bait, reaching out to Black African-American activists and residents, indirectly impacted people, and throwing these out there saying, hey, isn't this racist? What do you have to say about this? And the fact of the matter is that the firm is working for Veolia. and didn't even represent it as this. So thankfully, Art sent his letter to me, so we're going to actually show his letter to Judge Levy. But then what happened is that so he sent the letter, and then other folks, Pastor Thompson actually put a thing out there as well, and Nair's just horrified by this. But it says late Friday, so just last night, Judge Levy issued an order for Stern and an attorney for Veolia to appear before her 2 p.m. on this coming Tuesday, the 13th. Levy said in the order she had learned the public relations firm for Veolia had, quote, had contacted represented parties in the case and had issued a news release attacking plaintiffs' counsel's integrity and motivations. Today's hearing would be to determine what action from the court is appropriate. So this is Art Woodson's letter to the judge, which I know he shared as well. So you can, check in with him. And he said, oh my goodness. So we have former Mayor Dr. Karen Weaver that just posted in. She said, they called me yesterday. I told them that I made my statement when it happened in 2018 and would not be part of the interview. Just, again, and we're all represented by this, with this Veolia case. So you should be reaching out to our attorneys, but it's interesting that Veolia is not reaching out to our attorneys because they're bashing the attorneys of the team. But also you shouldn't be doing that. But also you're misusing and misrepresenting residents to make yourself look less culpable. So in Arthur Woodson's letter, he said, I'm contacting you due to the interaction I had this week with an individual related to the Flint water cases. The nature of the interaction has left me feeling obligated to inform you about what occurred. So here we have Art saying, he walks it through. And like Art, I have been getting a lot of phone calls from, it pops up on my caller ID numbers I don't recognize. So this is going to be another safety tip, folks. He was getting all these different calls. And a lot of times, especially around things like the settlement announcement and the 10-year coming up, we will answer because we'll be getting, calls from DC or New York, which are media firms. And because we have worked so hard and we really want to make sure we're still relevant in the media because we need that pressure, we'll answer them. I'm terrible at answering my phone, even for folks I love, but I will say, please text me, especially if I'm at work or I'm in the middle of a meeting or something else or a doctor's appointment, which is a lot. So Art didn't recognize it. So he called and he actually said the person was named Paul Persuade. I'm not going to, his name was unfamiliar to me. So I did a quick internet search and discovered he works for a company named Actum. Again, the PR firm hired by Veolia. I became curious about Actum, so he looked it up, and he's familiar with obviously the hearings and the trials, and he called him back for more information. Then when I called him back, the gentleman from Actum explained that there was going to be an article in the New York Post about attorney Corey Stern centered around an unflattering description of Flint that Mr. Stern gave during a podcast from many years ago, and he was seeking Flint residents' comments for the story. I found it strange that it was someone from a company I had not heard of calling for a comment rather than the reporter himself or someone else from the New York Post who was writing that story. So excellent instincts for Arthur Woodson right there. And so then he told him that, Corey Stern, he has had his differences and there's some things in the past that he did not like or agree with, but I don't always like him, but I'm not interested in speaking out about him. As he seems to be one of the only attorneys left willing to fight for Flint residents against Veolia. So he said it was clear to me during this call that Veolia was coming after Corey Stern, and I told him that I felt this way, and it also explained that he understood. So he knew. So Arthur sent this letter to the judge, and should a Flint resident, activist, directly impacted person have to do this? No. We spend a lot of our time, quote unquote, tattling. Like, I need to tell the attorneys this happened. I need to tell the judge that this happened. This is ridiculous. So then we get actually, and then Arthur had shared the actual email that went out, which basically said, this is from Actum, the PR firm. And thank you, Fran. We all have to stay strong because they were getting attacked and used in so many different creative ways. Imagine if they spent this effort and money on actually fixing the water crisis, like fixing our pipes, paying for our medical bills, paying us decent amounts besides chump change for settling for their inactions, and everything that led to the poisonings and sufferings and death and destruction that it has. But no, they would rather go ahead. And it's funny because Veolia likes to separate themselves from the state government and say, they're awful, look what they did. But they're doing the same thing. Lying, covering it up, delaying, paying pennies of what you should do, not going to jail, not being held accountable, and spending all this money on PR firms to make yourself look good instead of actually helping the people you're saying that you feel bad for. Okay. So in this, it says yesterday, one of the lawyers and this again is an email that went out as a statement from Actum, which is the PR firm hired by, Veolia. It said yesterday, one of the lawyers for the victims of the Flint water crisis was exposed for making derogatory comments about his clients and the city of Flint, even if, as their cases has been made, has made him and his fellow lawyers nearly $200 million. Okay. Well, how much have you not paid, Veolia? How much has Actum made on this, the PR firm? Just curious. The resurfaced audio of attorney Corey Stern aired on last night's episode of Roland Martin Unfiltered. So that's really interesting that Veolia would have the link, would know this is going on. And wow, let me just say how disappointed I am for Roland Martin's part in this, and Unfiltered, their part in this, as this obviously was planned to happen the week before the new trial is set to start. So quite interesting. And it says, after hearing Stern's comments, attorney Scott Bolden said, these comments are highly inappropriate. And this is an attorney for, Veolia. So of course he's going to say these things. So speaking out in this interest, speaking against your client actually creates a conflict of interest for you. Wow. Just wow. Also, it's just interesting how much they care about justice for Flint when all they've been doing is fighting. And if you, again, it's interesting to see the statement. They're like, oh my God, we have to do so much for Flint. But yet, if you Google it, Veolia, we had nothing to do with it. Veolia is innocent. We didn't harm Flint. We tried to help Flint, all this stuff. So again, literally has the links to the interviews and the time stamps. So wow, Veolia, you have nothing else to do. This is pretty crazily, impressively wow. So you look at this and it shows he's the senior vice president for Actum, the strategy, execution outcomes. Yeah, this was definitely a strategy to basically, I guess, make one of the attorneys, one of the many. Let me just tell you that there are so many attorneys in this class action. I know when I got my email about my deposition, it looked like there was a couple hundred attorneys listed on this email, so with these huge teams. Anyway, and let me just say, I'm not here to protect or stand up for Corey Stern. That's not what this is about. What this is about is that coming up on Tuesday, February 13th, Judge Levy has demanded that co-liaison counsel for plaintiffs, Corey Stern, had notified him also that Flint residents have had to reach out and notify Judge Levy that there is interesting things going on. It said the court received a letter from one of the individuals confirming that he was contacted by the public relations firm that has been going on attack against Corey Stern. And so basically February 13th at 2 p.m., the attorneys for Veolia and Corey Stern and other attorneys are invited to come to be held in a hearing about this. And the judge said, as the Supreme Court long ago stated, the courts of laws have the inherent equitable powers over their own process to prevent abuses, oppression, and injustice. This is a pretty strong statement by the judge, who is impartial. But what she has seen obviously raised a lot of red flags to where she's calling an emergency hearing and late on a Friday night. So basically, it seems to me, and of course, I'm going to say in my personal opinion, that Veolia is playing games, PR games, because they have tons of money. And they can do this. It's not impacting them. But then what's happening is now Flint residents are having to apologize and look at what their statements are and their reactions to this 2018, clip that they were shown, and they weren't alerted ahead of time. They had no time to prepare. And so they're like, wait a second. We don't want our words and our, emotional reactions to these inflammatory, statements and clips, and whether they're misrepresented or not. We don't want our honest reactions to be used by Veolia to help them claim their innocence. and again, if they were claiming innocence, it's interesting because they're writing a $25 million settlement check saying, you usually don't do that when you're innocent. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, so now Flint residents' words are being held against them. So now we have to look at who's calling us. And this is big. We have a 10-year anniversary coming up. So now we're going through all this stress and anxiety. So now I want to sue for additional stress and anxiety because now I don't know if I should answer these calls. So I feel like my voice is going to be suppressed. And other residents feel the same way, that now we don't feel we can talk to the media. Is this the media or is this a PR firm for Veolia? At the EPA and Department of Justice are still hanging out there as defendants. Or is somebody going to call me fake being a reporter saying this is for a report to get an emotional reaction out of me, and they're going to use that? Veolia actually is using Flint residents on their website that they don't have. Like Art Woodson told me earlier today that he did not give them permission to use him or his likeness, his name, anything on their website, and they're still doing it. So they're just doing basically whatever they want, in my opinion. And I'm glad to see Judge Levy actually, saying, hey, okay, we got to talk about this. Something's wrong. There's something wrong. And yeah, and the fact that we've got Roland Martin emailing, us, they emailed Flint Rising, and Nayyirah, I couldn't do it. And Nayyirah Sharif was going to do it. And actually it was funny because Nayyirah said to me, well, I don't want you getting burned out, because I had other interviews. And actually we had a live stream going for the Flint Public Health Youth Academy. So I can't. And was like, well, I don't want you getting burned out. I'll do it. And the fact that Nayyirah's words are being used to support Veolia. And then Nayyirah had to do another, we don't have enough to do. Then Art had to write the letter. Pastor Thompson had to make a statement. Nayyirah had to, go back and be like, hey, this is not in defense of Veolia whatsoever. If Corey said something, why is this? And again, if Corey Stern said this, then he needs to apologize if he already hasn't from 2018. And if it's being misused, yeah. But why is Veolia leading the charge on this? And it's interesting why then, you see the Free Press and everybody putting out these articles, saying, oh my God, top lawyer. Why aren't you as the media questioning why Veolia, a defendant, is saying, that they're looking for something just, and oh my God, we're here to protect the Flint residents, and going after their attorneys? Excuse me? So why did not set off a red flag for Paul Egan or anybody else like that? Because then as people are, and see this, Rhonda Kelso just put, I'm trying not to do any more interviews. This is suppression. So again, my personal opinion, I'm not saying these are the opinions of the Urban News Station or even Flint Rising. This is Melissa Mays, directly impacted Flint resident, plaintiff in a lot of these cases. Flint mother, human being. By Veolia doing this and the media going along with it, and certain media going along with it, and the PR firms headline just pushing for this, it makes us not want to talk to the media anymore. And that is exactly what would help the responsible parties. It is exactly what will help these folks get away with and not being held accountable. This is not going to help to get the pipes replaced any faster that still aren't finished. It's not going to help us get the settlements we deserve. It's not going to help the world know what's actually going on with Flint. And it's definitely not going to help other poison cities who are learning from Flint. So shame on all of these people. And I've spoken with Paul Egan before. I'm just shocked and appalled that this is media. There's so much information out there about Veolia and what they've done, and the cities that have, been in tatters. Like Pittsburgh's still struggling. I mean, there's all these cities that are still struggling by this privatization scheme, and that they want to protect their billions and they want to protect their reputation. Sure, okay, I get it. But when you've got Roland Martin, Paul Egan, you've got respected reporters and journalists coming out there and being used as a tool, but then further using Flint residents and their reactions, their emotional reactions to these types of things that in the long run, they matter, but they don't, not for what's coming up, but you can see that they matter in a different scope. But what's happening is why not use critical thinking and say, okay, this is a week before Veolia goes back on trial and it's pointed at the attorneys. Why does Veolia care who called what and who is racist to what? Because also some of the things in their communications aren't that great. Now, that leads me to my exciting, another exciting thing for me, another exciting announcement that this next week, there's been let me just say, again, this is not a bash on the media in general, because there are a lot of amazing residents, or I mean, there's a lot of amazing media that and journalists, especially independent journalists and especially investigative journalists, that have helped uncover so many stuff and so many things, and helped us with standing up for ourselves, right? Well, there was one that I was happy to lucky to be able to work with on this, the whole what's going on with the websites, what's going on with this spamming situation. It seems like what's going on, why is this happening, and why would they be blasting all of this money out about, hey, we're innocent, like right around their trial time, right? So lucky me. Lucky me. Oh, I get to bring on next week. Oh, so mark this on your calendars, and we will be on time. Of course, it's me. That I will be able to go on and do a live stream, do another episode of In Flint with Kayla Rubel, who, if you know her, if you've got to meet her, if you've got to work with her at all, you know that she has been in Flint. She helped with the PBS documentary about Legionnaires. She's been on it with the with basically with everything going on. She stood by us and she's looked out for us, but gets a hold of this information and just starts digging. So so she's going to come on my show next week. So February 17th at 2 p.m. I'm lucky that Kayla's going to be a guest, and we're going to get into what's been going on. We're going to get into okay, what have we found, what's going on, what's the news, what all of the things that we need to know as residents. And yeah, we want to make sure that that residents have all the information, that that questions get asked. And so it's going to be a live discussion with y'all. Hopefully you can make it, and people who are watching this during the week, hopefully you also are able to join us to ask questions. But we're going to be adding in, we're going to be showing a lot of the information coming behind, but also the biggest thing is going to be updates from what comes out of this hearing. Is something going to happen? Is Veolia going to be held accountable for basically having Flint residents think that they're talking to journalists that are actually going to be who are misleading them about the 10th anniversary, or this PR firm that didn't identify themselves, that they were working for Veolia and trying to reach out to multiple Flint residents, including your former mayor, to try to get their response to basically attack an attorney, one of many attorneys. Let me just put you that way, one of many attorneys. And what happens? What happens when you are, what would happen if it was you or I? I always ask that question. What do you think would happen if you or I pulled this? And they've used, and Veolia, hey, they've got all the money in the world, it seems like, and they used a lot of money to put out these ads, last year during the trial. And then they went ahead, and now it seems like they're, getting media outlets to help them, trash some of our attorneys that are still fighting for us. And then now we have, folks like, Art Woodson and Pastor Thompson and Naira Sharif, who now have to then defend their own words, because they're being misused by and used to defend Veolia, which none of the folks agreed to that. So next week, I'm proud of this. Please join us here on In Flint for a special edition with Veolia Exposed with Kayla Rubel, who has done a lot of great work and who will be following the hearing and the outcome. So we'll be able to update everybody. But in the meantime, let's remember the safety information. Please, if somebody, you don't recognize phone number, let it go to voicemail and check your voicemail. Ask them what media outlet are they representing? And then what is going to happen? What are they going to cover? And if they do spring something on you live, don't respond. You can tell them live, say, I was asked to come on to talk about this 10-year anniversary, not whatever this piece of inflammatory mess is. Because now Flint residents, as if we don't have enough to be suspicious of and enough to be, concerned about, we have to make sure that these are actual real media people, and actually make sure that they're telling the truth. And if they try to do some kind of fun, sideways thing, you can just say, I'm not prepared to talk about that. I'm going to have to research more into this. And you can be polite about it, or you can just go on talking about what you need to inform people about. But in no way, shape, or form should this be yet another win for Veolia and responsible parties to silence the voices of Flint residents, because now we have to worry that our words are going to be used to support the people who are responsible. And again, if Veolia was completely innocent, they wouldn't be cutting a $25 million check. And again, if they really cared about Flint residents, that $25 million would be a lot more. And they would stop going after the attorneys representing Flint children. Come on, grow up. But anyhow, so February 13th on Tuesday, there is a hearing, and we'll find out what happens. And then next Saturday, the 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, please join us here. Once again, I'm Melissa Mays. I run What Are You Fighting For? So What Are You Fighting For here? You can join us in the Urban News group, station group. And you can, actually, Rhonda, that's a great thing. You can actually have them defer to your attorneys as well. That's always safe. But again, you stick up for yourself. Your voice does matter. And don't let somebody try to use it for their own benefit, because of course that's what they're going to do. And that's shameful. And we'll see if it's a violation of the proceedings, especially since, we're still in the middle of a court and we're all represented. So you should speak to our attorneys anyways. That being said, I just wanted to clarify this because, the Paul Egan story was quite inflammatory. And again, if Corey Stern did say, if the attorney did say, well, they're going to use it for crack money, at the end of the day, what's funny? What we use our settlement money for is nobody's business. If I want to use my money for crack money, that's my business, not anybody else's. It shouldn't be used. That information, like that statement on a comedy podcast from like 5.5 years ago, has no bearing on right now. Veolia, it's not your business to clutch those pearls and pretend you care about what one of the attorneys said years ago. And you already showed your little, little soreness and your little, I guess we can say snowflake action there when you used half of your statement about settling to attack another attorney. Come on. Stop using the money. Use this money to help actual people and the victims, the people that are suffering. Stop using our voices to help you, because not a single one of us are here to help defend Veolia against the actions that have led us to where we're at. Your actions, inactions, whatever it is you did, that's between you and the judge and the court and the people that you have to settle with. So that being said, Flint residents, don't let them silence your voice. Don't let them use you. We're too important. But also, we're strong. We're in this together. And, we got to look out for one another. So when you hear things like this happening, please let me know. Please let each other know. And let's continue to look out for one another. And hold people responsible. So let Veolia know, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Also, reach out to the media. If you're misrepresented, feel free to let them know what they did is wrong. But get your attorneys on if you need to, because we are represented in this case. And then, ask questions. You have every right to ask questions and get the information, because we've been harmed far too much already. So Veolia, I don't think you should have another chance to harm Flint residents, and you should be ashamed of this behavior. So I hope the judge feels the same, but we'll find out on Tuesday. But in the meantime, for the rest of the week, please, use filters, use bottled water, please, get your water tested, take care of yourself, go to the doctor, know that you're important and you're valued. And, I care a lot about you. We all do. The fight isn't over. We're in this together. All of those things being said, in this day and age, it's hard to get away with much. So I'm glad that we have folks like, like Kayla and, Art Woodson, who wrote the letter, and our attorneys looking out for us. But in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Be safe. It's going to get cold. Be healthy. Take care of yourself. And I will see you all yeah, next Saturday at 2 p.m., unless something else happens, and you'll get a quick update like today. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, take care of each other.